Anthony Grassi here at the Women Leaders in Sports National Convention. Happy to sit down for another small college conversation with Pennie Parker, the Associate Vice President, Director of Athletics at Rollins College. Pennie, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So as we sit here right now, you're in year 19 as Director of Athletics at Rollins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, walk me through how you start each year refreshed, both you yourself and what your kind of message, your pitch, your hype speech to the rest of your staff is each academic year.
Well, I think each year we sit down in the fall and kind of do our fall retreat, and we talk about, the vision for the next year, what we're going to do, what we're going to work on, which areas need more focus, and how we're going to get through those together as a team. And I'm fortunate that I've had a lot of my same staff members for longer than I've been there, so that's been different, I would say, than what's normal in the college landscape with all the changes that go along with that. But this past year, we started having a few retire and a few step away. So I'm hiring new coaches or maybe assistant coaches and elevating assistant coaches. So it's always fun to see the passion that they bring and the enthusiasm and, saying, hey, what do you think about this? Getting their feedback has been priceless because they do bring a different perspective, and it helps us all elevate our game.
Those individuals that have been around a long time, that consistency in leadership throughout the athletic department, how do you think about, keeping, I imagine it's easier from a consistency standpoint, but making sure you guys don't get in a rut, maybe from a leadership standpoint, from a thinking forward perspective?
And I would say that is, something that I always think about is how are we keeping ourselves fresh? Because my leadership team has probably been the same for the last 10 to 12 years, which again, the longevity is not always common in college athletics.
For sure.
But I think I've done a great job, and we've done a great job treating each other with respect and kindness and appreciating which talent each person brings. So we've done that, but the perspectives that we've gotten as we've hired new staff members it's been phenomenal. They bring the fresh ideas. They've seen it done differently at other institutions or even in their roles in other colleges or universities. And so we're able to, I would say, integrate the best practices from our new employees. And I always say my assistant coaches have been just they keep me going. They are amazing, and they just want to work so hard. I love that. And I think it keeps those head coaches who've been there for quite a while, also keeps them fresh, and that keeps pushing them in the positive direction.
Tell me about the culture that you've tried to create, because I imagine, especially at a place that there's been consistency in leadership and longevity with a lot of the staff and coaches, as an outsider, quote unquote, or a new hire, it may be challenging. Maybe it's more a personal challenge to overcome to say, all right, I'll step up and speak my mind, being the new kid on the block.
Right. And I think what I've done is all my staff members know that they can come to me and tell me anything. They know that I care about them as people first.
Right.
And I think that's been the key to having people trust you and come to you and share. Like you said, it may be something that they wouldn't have shared at their former institution because they didn't feel like it was okay. But I try to make sure everybody knows that the culture at Rollins is we're open to new ideas. We will implement them if we can, and don't be afraid to speak up, because you might know something or think something that's going to be so much better than what we have or what I could create. So I'm always willing to listen.
Do you have a process for innovation or leading the department forward? Do you have a structured check-in, and maybe it's on a semester basis or it's on an academic year basis or it's on a monthly basis, maybe it ties into sports seasons to reach some of those new initiatives? Obviously, every one of your coaches has probably a list of things that they would like done, but at a limited resource institution, we don't have unlimited funds. So how do you go think about the incremental improvements that can be made and the structure that you can build, the process you can build to achieve those?
Right, and I think the best way to answer that is it's all rooted in the student-athlete experience. Yes, we all have different ideas about what we'd like to do, but if we keep the student-athletes at the heart of our decision and our strategic process for allocating resources, I think we'll all be better because of that. So I don't always get to say yes. This past summer, we actually had a big win, which was so exciting for us, in that we did get some of the resources allocated that we've been asking for several years. And so it's been amazing to have my coaches be re-energized because they have a little bit more in their budget than they'd had in the past.
Imagine it gives a little more pep in their step when they
Yes.
walk in. Yeah. You're also at the beginning stages of a presidential change.
Yes.
What are some of the steps you're thinking about for going through the transition process and onboarding the next president?
Yeah, that's a great question because I've did that when our former president was there, and I think that some of the steps that I took was obviously I want to be proud of what we've done, and I am so proud of what we've done. We've been very, very committed to being a student first and athlete second, so academically we performed very, very well. And then, of course, competitively we've done well, which is important. So you get the whole balanced package of the student athlete. So I want to be able to talk to that incoming president about that and talk about our vision, how we're going to grow our programs. Not necessarily, we're in a place where we don't need to add sports, but how can we enhance the ones that we already have? And I'm just really looking forward to sitting down with that person once they start and be able to tell our story and be able to invite them to competitions and have them get to know my student athletes, my SAC, my coaches. So I'm really excited about it.
You're also very involved on committees you have or are serving on almost all of
Yes.
the committees around Division II athletics. What has that meant for your development as a leader?
I cannot even begin to tell you how it has impacted my leadership and impacted me as a professional and my network. When I first was on a committee, I was fortunate enough to be on ManCo and Division II, and I knew then, after the very first meeting, I was like, this is amazing. But I have to take off my Rollins hat, and I have to put on one that's much bigger and broader to think about how all these things affect the membership. All these changes and all these conversations have a different impact, in different areas of the country and in different segments of what we do. So I thought I really was able to learn so much from my colleagues in that space and from the D2 staff. They're amazing. They keep us prepared for all those conversations. And then just to be able to elevate our voice, listen to the student athletes in the room. Working with National SAC was amazing. I've been on legislation committee a couple of times, so people think I'm crazy. But I've enjoyed it both times because, again, we are creating the legislation that impacts all of our student athletes, our sports, our teams, our playing and practice seasons, and I've just enjoyed being a part of that process. And I can't say it enough for our younger professionals that are out there, get on a committee. Serve, you will learn so much and you will build lifelong friendships and expand your network. And I think it's just so important that as you grow and develop as a professional that you have people you can call and people you can bounce ideas off of. And I got that from being on all these committees.
Is it a challenge at times to take off the Rollins hat and put on the Division II hat?
Yes.
Because I imagine there are instances that what's best for Rollins and what's best for Division II aren't always exactly aligned. They might be going the same direction, but they're not on the same road per se.
Right. And I think that was one of the things I had to learn early was how to take off that hat, and it was important to sit there and realize that, okay, you have to think about this from the Rollins lens, of course, but then the Sunshine State Conference lens, but then there's just the rest of the membership and what might be best for us in the very south part of the region in the U.S. may not be the best for the Pacific Northwest. So it's been interesting to learn and have other people be able to advocate for what they think is right and have those discussions in management council specifically about, okay, it affects you one way, it affects me a different way, but what is the best way and which pathway should we choose for our student athletes?
One of the other committees you're on, you were the new third vice president for NACDA.
Yes.
As a whole. What does it mean to be a Division II athletic director? I would say mainly probably a not Division I athletic director and have that position to be in the rotation to be the next president in a few years.
Well, I am thrilled about the opportunity. I could not say yes fast enough when Pat called about the position, and just knowing that there has never been a Division II female in that role. There's only been one other AD, Tim Selgo, from Division II that's been in that role. And he leaves some big shoes to fill, but I'm so excited to be the first female from Division II in that space.
Have you thought about what that will mean?
I think
that's a big question.
Yeah. I think it's going to mean so much because, as we know, the landscape is changing so much. So I feel like it's my responsibility to be as aware as I can about what's going on in D1, and then have the voice for D2 and D3 at the table as well. And I think that's something that gives me pride, because I do believe we have to have, again, the biggest lens when we talk about D1, D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO, all of those different divisions. I get to be the voice, and I can't wait.
I'll get you out in this last question. I'll admit kind of a bit of a big question. What is the biggest challenge you are facing? And you can take that any number of directions. It can be your role, your career development, Rollins, D2, NCAA.
Yeah, I think there's so many out there. It's hard to pick just one.
I can imagine.
But challenges are also opportunities.
Right.
And I think as I sit in my chair, I do wonder how all of the changes at the Division I level will affect Division II and Division III. I think we're in a great spot. So that's not so much as a challenge as it is just a small worry. But I think, what about the portal? How's that affected what we do in Division II? It certainly has changed what we do in Division II. And then at the end of the day, I think limited resources are what really are on the horizon. And, we talk about decline in enrollment. I'm just giving you a plethora of things that are out there.
Yeah, there's a laundry list.
Yes, and student-athlete, mental health, the coaches' mental health, my whole staff, there's just so many different pieces and parts out there, but I feel like, if we talk about these things and as we discuss them, if we can find solutions, then we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good message to end on. Pennie, thank you so much for joining me today on Leaders.
Thank you. Appreciate it.